There we go. Now I'm recording. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do here is just kind of show you how to kind of manipulate your screen a little bit. There's mute button right here. I can control and mute everybody. And so if I hear somebody accidentally unmute or somebody comes in new and is not muted, I'll go ahead and do that so we don't get that reverberation back and forth. And then in terms of your video, you can turn your video off right there with where that green arrow is. Your chat box, you can open up the chat box right there. There's also the participant screen. You can open that up as well. And then when you open your chat box, make sure that there's a drop down right here below this arrow. Make sure it's selected to everyone, and then that way everyone can see your questions as they come in. So that's kind of what you should be looking at with your screen right now. So with that, we will go ahead and get going. And in fact, you know what I'll do is, why doesn't everybody open your chat box just so you can have it? And I'm going to type in a message here just so you can see how it works. So you'll type below where it says to everyone. So there it is. Hopefully you can see that. If you want to respond and say hi back, then that way I'll know you found that okay. And we are recording this video today so that I will send a copy of it to Becky so that if you'd like to keep it and be able to refer back to it, you can do that. Very good. I'm seeing some good mornings back, so that's great. All right, here. Very good, very good, very good. All right, well, first of all, in the chat box, I'm going to just put it right out to you right now. Let me know, and I'd like to get a response from everybody, if I could, how many of you are already using iNaturalist? And so a yes or no on iNaturalist. And then also, if you are somebody that's just getting started, let me know that you're a nestling, and let me know if you have been using it for, let's say you've got more than 100 observations, then you're a fledgling. So if you could let me know that, that would be awesome. And then if you're a really experienced user of iNaturalist, if you could let me know that, and maybe you're a, an after second year bird. Okay, so Patty says she's a beginner. That's good. And then another one new. Nestling got my ID last night. That's pretty new. Okay, and Becky use it, but very new to it. Okay, good. So I just want to make sure that I'm not talking to the already strongly committed choir here and rehashing things that you already know. So we're going to go through the schedule is to kind of go through the next hour or so, reviewing what our program does and how we use iNaturalist and the data that comes into iNaturalist, and then also review the website very briefly with slides, and then go into quite a bit of detail on how to actually take and download images on your phone, and then give you some photography tips. And then after that, we're going to take a little break, and I'm going to ask everybody to go outside in your yard or wherever you are and actually take some photographs using iNaturalist. And then we'll gather back, and that way it's an opportunity to see if you have any questions while we're here together today. And we would normally do this in person, but we'll do it here online and make that work out. And then I'll talk about City Nature Challenge and what that's all about and how you can participate in that. And then finally, about a little bit about your BioBlitz you're going to be doing tomorrow at the Nature Center. And then finally, we will go to the website live, because as I tell people, the app on your phone is a data collection tool, but the real meat of iNaturalist is actually on the website. So I want to go to the website live and kind of navigate you through that to show you all the different possibilities that are out there. So, okay, yeah, Becky, that's okay. So anyway, so that's what we're going to try to do today. So let's go ahead and dive right into it here. First of all, I do work for Texas Parks and Wildlife. I've been working for the organization now for a little more than 10 years, over about a 14-year period, and I won't try to explain that to you. But I'm part of what is known as the Community Stewardship and Engagement Team. There are 4 of us in our team. For those of you that might be a master naturalist, you know my boss, Michelle Haggerty. And then I work with Tanya Homayoun, who's the other Texas Nature Trackers biologist. And our purpose in existing basically is to engage community scientists and reach out and get more information through community science efforts so that we can have a better understanding of the conservation needs of fish and wildlife across our wildlife and plants across the state of Texas. I also work with Olivia Hahn, who produces some wonderful videos advocating for and educating people about the natural world. So it's a little team of 4 of us that do quite a bit of work to engage the general public. More specifically, what we do is, as part of the Wildlife Diversity Division, we help track the status of wild populations of plants and animals throughout Texas. Texas Nature Trackers brings together community scientists of all backgrounds and interests to actively engage in collecting those data. And I should say that you don't have to only be you can be just somebody that's not a master naturalist or not a member of the Native Plant Society. You can just be anybody in the public can participate in using iNaturalist and then contributing data to our efforts. And the one thing, even though we're taking the data and using it for conservation efforts, for you individually, one of the things I really want to stress with this app is revolutionary. If I had this when I was a kid, oh my gosh, I would be so much a better naturalist today than I am if this thing were around 40 years ago. It's like literally walking around with a nature encyclopedia in your phone. And I know you can go to Wikipedia and look up everything and all that good stuff. But what this app does is it allows you to see something out in nature and go, I don't know what the heck that is, take a picture of it using iNaturalist. And I won't say 9 times out of 10, but a lot of the time you're going to get help in identifying what that thing is you're looking at. Now, there are exceptions. I will say that iNaturalist can't identify everything on Earth. If you think about, let's just take beetles, for example. And I have a friend of mine who I keep training on the fact that iNaturalist can't identify everything. If you take all the vertebrates in the world, every species of vertebrate in the world, there are still more species of beetles than there are of all of those. And some of them are really, really tiny. I took a picture of a beetle last night that probably measures a millimeter on a flower. And my chances of identifying that or iNaturalist identifying that are slim to none. But it's okay. The more pictures we take of all of those things, the better we get and the better that artificial intelligence of iNaturalist gets. So maybe there's a day that we can start to do that. But that said, you can learn a tremendous amount by using iNaturalist on your own in your backyard, where you go camping or you go hiking. To learn what's around you. And I've always been a big believer that I hate the thought of going through the world and not knowing what's around you, not knowing the plants, not knowing the animals, the bird songs, that kind of thing. So I have 3 brothers who knew nothing about the natural world, and I just can't even get in that headspace in terms of that. So this gives you that tool to go out and really learn about nature. And there are some other really nice apps to do that as well, but iNaturalist is one of the best and certainly one that we rely on quite a bit, along with eBird and a few other things. So how our program works, basically, we serve kind of as the middle people. If you have the naturalist community out there, the community scientists are out there, and they're using iNaturalist to learn and also to contribute, we can take some of that data and move that data after vetting it for identification correctness and locational accuracy. And we can take that data and share it with the research and conservation community. And so we can get, in Texas, every county has 1 wildlife biologist that works for TPWD. They can't possibly know everything that's going on in each county. It's just an impossibility. So again, the strength of the naturalist, the community science naturalist community is very, very impactful in terms of magnifying the impact that one biologist can have in terms of documenting flora and fauna. So we get those folks recruited, and then they get out and do their thing, and then we can take some of that data and get it over to the research and science community. And the way we do that is our goal ultimately then is to move high quality data into what's known as the Texas Natural Diversity Database. And we do that by having our own iNaturalist projects. These are all traditional projects. You have to join each project and submit the data through those projects. But we can take that information vet it, as I mentioned, and then give that. And we really focus on what are known as species of greatest conservation need. So we're looking at specific species, and we're going to talk about what those are in just a moment. We take that data, give that to the Texas Natural Diversity Database team, and then they can further vet that data, get it onto maps like what you see right there, so that if you are a researcher or you're a TxDOT or you're a natural resource agency, or you are a developer, you can actually access this, or the general public, and access this data to find out what you can expect to find in these areas if you're going to go in, particularly if you're going to go in, and whether it's to buy up land for conservation or if it's to put a new road in or whatever it happens to be. So this is a really valuable data tool for conservation planning and then research as well, and land conservation, frankly. This is all part of the requirement for every state in the country to have what's known as a conservation action plan. Ours is the Texas Conservation Action Plan. We get federal dollars. This is a requirement. Nationwide, there are more than 12,000 SGCNs, or species of greatest conservation need. In Texas right now, we have more than 1,300 species. In order for us to really do good conservation, we need to know what's going on with those, with all species, of course. And we do that by putting together this action plan. Right now, TPWD is undertaking a revision of this plan to update it. You can see that the last date was 2012. So that will be work that's going to be done for the next couple of years to update that plan moving forward. So this is a dynamic document so that we're not just treading water for long periods of time. Okay, Cheryl, I'm glad you found the to everyone thing. Okay, good. You just hit that drop down on the chat and you'll find that. And I see Cheryl Pender right now, you use Seek, which is great, but just so you know, the Seek data does not go into any of the projects. So we're going to mention Seek because it's a really great app, especially for young children. So because you don't have to have an account, but that data is going to be on your computer, but not shared with the greater naturalist community. So we want to make sure that you get up to speed on iNaturalist because that's where you can really have an impact beyond your own learning. Just so you know. So what is an SGCN? An SGCN is a species of greatest conservation need. It's a native plant or animal that's declining or rare and in need of some kind of attention to recover or to prevent the need to list under state or federal regulation. So the idea is to identify what species are suffering, what can we, and then we can pour, resources into that species to find out what's going on, what steps we can take to bring that species back. And the idea is to not get things put on the federal or state threatened or endangered species lists. And if it does get put on that, then the goal becomes what can we do to get them off that list? The idea that, some people have the idea that all we're trying to do is get everything on the endangered species list so you can't develop any land or whatever. That's absolutely the opposite of what the reality is. We're trying to practice conservation so that ideally someday there would be no need for an endangered species list. I think we've got a ways to go on that, but that would be in the ideal world. So how does a plant or animal become a species of greatest conservation need? Basically, it's a species that could have been common at one time, and through a lot of variables, it could be habitat loss, it could be over or unregulated hunting in the past, it could be disease. There's just all kinds of reasons that a species that once was common for whatever combination of reasons just starts to decline. And at some point, if we're tracking that and we know enough about it and we start to see those declines, it might be declared an SGCN. And at that point, it's kind of a trigger for us to start looking at it from a research standpoint and figure out what's going on. And again, the idea is to keep it from getting to the threatened list or the endangered list, because after that, obviously, there's only one list left, and that's the extinct list. So that's a normal way that something becomes an SGCN. A second way a species can become an SGCN is we literally don't have enough data on that species. So if you go to Texas Parks and Wildlife and you look for SGCNs, you're going to find the Carolina chickadee on that list. Well, if you know anything about birds, the Carolina chickadee seems to be everywhere. But we just don't know what the population trends are for that bird and many other species. And some of those species that are on that list are so small or live in such small environments like caves that we don't know the space. We don't know. We just don't know. Part of it is trying to get access to it. Most of our land in Texas is private land. So, we might know that it's out there, but if we can't study it or get a sense of that, we may not have any choice but to list it as an SGCN with a question mark status on it. So that's another way that species end up on that list. And by the way, that list is dynamic. So once we've done enough research and we go, this population is actually stable, we can remove that from that list and move on to other species of concern. So who are our SGCNs? Well, there's a lot of them. As I mentioned, there's more than 1,200, 1,300 of them here in Texas alone. And they range from migratory birds like the whooping crane that we only see in the wintertime, and thus can only have a certain amount of impact on those, down to a really iconic species like the Texas horned lizard. For those of you that live around Kerrville, you may, in your lifetime, may have seen them, but maybe today you don't see them anywhere, because I know down here in the Bernie and San Antonio area, people don't see them anymore. They used to be very common from what I understand. In parts of Texas, they still persist, but there are general declines in the populations being seen. So there's a lot of effort going on with that species. And then you can even take a species like the bobwhite, the northern bobwhite, which is a game animal, but its population across its range, including in Texas, has been suffering for a long time. And there's a lot of resources poured in to the bobwhite quail because it is such a popular game bird, trying to figure out what's impacting the population that is not hunting related, by the way. And then finally, you have, you can see some of the other examples there, but you even have a bird like the loggerhead shrike, which in Texas is not only a year-round resident, but it's also, the state is also a place where a lot of the birds from the north come to Texas to spend the winter. And this is a bird that we're actually starting our own TNT project on. Tanya's heading that up with some folks with American Bird Conservancy to look at a breeding bird population of these up in north of Austin. But they come down, but the populations outside of Texas are declining to the point where in Canada and in some states they've been declared to be either threatened or endangered species at the state level, and in Canada, I think at the national level. And part of it is habitat loss, no doubt, but they're still trying to figure out what's going on. And when the birds come to Texas, is this species competing with our resident birds and having to go to secondary quality habitats, and is that having an impact on their survival in the wintertime so they don't make it back north? So those are just a few examples right there of who our SGCNs are. So just to kind of show you why we do this. So community science or citizen science, the benefits of this are many, obviously to the individual, but also for conservation purposes. And this is just one example. The eastern spotted skunk tends to be a very nocturnal, it's a small skunk, it's very nocturnal, very seldom seen. And so that's one of the challenges. We don't know where it exists because people just don't see it and report it. So some research was undertaken a few years ago to take a look at the distribution of the spotted skunk in Texas. Researchers went out and they put out camera traps, game cameras, track plates, live traps in 10 different counties. And they had those things out for 8,000 device nights. And a device night, basically, if you have a game camera out for one night, that's a device night for that particular device. And they only had 12 detections in 4 of the 10 counties. So that's one skunk per 262 device nights. That's not a lot of return on that investment. Fortunately, at the same time, they put a call out for crowdsourced data, or the community science world, back in January 2016 to have people report their sightings. They even made up a wanted poster with a picture of this skunk on it and distributed that. They asked for those observations in iNaturalist. And you'll notice that between detections, museum records, they got 105 observations. 29 of those came from the wanted poster, which I thought was pretty interesting. And that resulted in 83 new confirmed eastern spotted skunk sightings in 26 counties instead of those 4 that they worked on. And what's really valuable there is some of those records in those counties were new county records. They had never documented those in those counties. So again, that gives us more information so that we can then take steps. Is this an animal that's declining? Is it one that's doing okay? And they can make good decisions for conservation based on those critters. So something to keep in mind. So let's go over just real quickly our website. We are part of Texas Parks and Wildlife. Obviously, we have our own website, and you can access this website to find out what we do and then join our iNaturalist projects and get involved. This is what the page looks like right here. The first one, there are 3 tabs down here: projects, target species, and get involved. First one to look at are projects. We assist with and oversee or oversee 12 different projects. You can see that there's quite a variety of taxa folks there. Hang on just a second. I am going to do something here. If you are joining us, if you could go ahead and mute yourself. I'll go ahead and do that. There we go. Hopefully that gets everybody muted. Okay, there we go. Perfect. All right. So here are our 12 projects. You can see our biggest one, really, one of the biggest ones and one of the longest ranging ones is Herps of Texas. We only set these projects up a few years ago. A lot of our efforts with citizen scientists was done by paper. So paper surveys, you go out and, grab a route to go look or listen for frogs and toads, and you document that on paper and send it off to us. Same thing with horned lizards and other projects, and all of that now has been wrapped up into these projects that are online and can be done through iNaturalist. So we're going to highlight a couple of them here in just a moment. But you can see we've got everything from terrestrial mollusks to bees and wasps. We've still tracked Texas whooping cranes observations. The bald eagle, I just read a research paper that says the bald eagle has exploded in terms of its population, in terms of its comeback. And again, that's an example of an endangered species that we were able to learn more about, take steps to protect it, and now we find it find it nesting throughout much of Texas, for example, and across, I think, all 48 of the contiguous states. But we're still interested in following it. We don't want to just completely say, okay, it's done, we don't have to ever worry about it again. So we're monitoring eagle nests as a project from across the state. There are estimates are maybe as many as 300 of nesting pairs across the state. Our records only show about 30 or so. So we have a lot of work to do with that project to get people watching and documenting where eagles are nesting across the state of Texas. In the valley, they have the Red Crown Parrot Project. The Freshwater Mussels Project is one that's been going on for a long time, and even have a Texas Milkweeds Project. So you can see it runs the gamut out there. And again, most of our focus is on those species that are called species of greatest conservation need. And again, I should mention that these are traditional projects, and that's kind of an old style project, but allows us to do some data analysis that we can't do with the new projects that are called collection projects, and we'll go through those in a little bit later. So basically, you have to join the project and then submit your observation to that specific project once you have taken a photograph of whatever that organism is. So something to keep in mind. So if you're going to join a project, you would go to the website, you would click on one of the projects, you're going to see that you have the choice of clicking join the project. Here you can read a little bit of information on that. And our website, by the way, is continuing to be updated. So some of this is, we should see some updates here in the next month or so, actually. So when you join the project, this is what the page is going to look like. It's going to show you that we have, we're actually now approaching 200,000 observations of reptiles and amphibians in Texas. And you can also, by the way, you can always leave the project. You don't have to stay on the project. You can learn about the rules and regulations there. And just to show you the power of this project, the first 5 years or so, we had 41,000 observations. 2,200 of those approximately were able to be good enough records to go into the Texas Natural Diversity Database. So that becomes very valuable scientific data. Over the course of the next 2 years, We had another 65,000 observations. And what that tells you is the popularity of iNaturalist is increasing over time and continues to do so today. And we took another 1,600 observations and put it into the database. And then, so that's about 3,800 as a result of this. And in 2019 and 20, we did another pull of data and got another approximately 1,500, a little bit less than that, SGC and records that were added to the database. And we are in the process right now of doing another data pool that hopefully will result in additional new observations that go into that record, those records, so that we get better understanding about this group of animals in Texas. Another project just to highlight, because they're easy to take pictures of, are the Texas milkweeds for monarchs. Of course, you all know, are probably aware of the fact that monarch butterflies have been suffering for a number of years now, and the population overwintering in Mexico this year was much lower than the year before. So there's always been a lot of concern and increasing concern about what's going to happen to the monarch butterfly population. And of course, they are obligate hosts on milkweeds. Their caterpillars can't eat anything else. So they need milkweed. So we started a project to try to find out what's going on in milkweeds across the state of Texas. And so we've gotten lots and lots of contributions to that. You can see this is a map. It's a little bit old, but this is a map that shows where all those observations are coming in. So a lot of data is coming in on these. We can focus not only on the SGCN species, of which there's one of these milkweeds, but we can also look at the distribution of other species that we're not real familiar with in terms of distribution and get additional data that can be very important down the road. Also, another benefit of this particular project is you can download this identification guide to the Asclepias milkweeds in Texas. And it's a wonderful publication with range maps, with photographs, with descriptions. And you can download that, carry it on your phone if you're into monarch butterflies and milkweed plants. And milkweeds are fascinating organisms. They rival orchids in terms of some of the unique characteristics their flowers have. So the next thing you can do on our website is go to what's called target species. And these are species that we're specifically looking for data for getting data from community scientists. And when you open up that link, you'll see that this is right here, and this is updated each year. But we have mammals, birds, herbs, fish, plants, and invertebrates. You can select by that. So if you select birds, here are our target species of birds currently that we're hoping people provide data on. You can also search by ecoregion. So you can, if you select the Central Great Plains, when you do that, then you have all of these choices again, and you can look at the birds of that particular part of the state of Texas. So there's all kinds of ways to search for those critters. So when you go out, you can either be targeting those or at least be aware that these species are what we're looking for. And then finally, there's Get Involved. And this is where we're going to shift now to iNaturalist and get into the details of the iNaturalist app and program and see how we can better utilize it going forward. Let me take a drink here. So first of all, iNaturalist was not developed by Texas Parks and Wildlife. We tried to do our own app, but it didn't really pan out. And as soon as Windows was updated, we were it cost a lot of money. And we were able to not be able to do that. So we had to kind of forego that. So we really dove into iNaturalist. It was developed by, the initial concept was developed by some graduate students in California. It's now housed in California. It's a global, literally a global phenomenon now. But it is basically, as it says here, is an online social network of people sharing biodiversity information to help each other learn about nature. And they have two primary goals. One is to connect people to nature. And the second one is to generate scientifically valuable biodiversity data from users' personal encounters with nature. So we're taking advantage of that. Other states are taking advantage of this fact that people are out with their phones, taking pictures on iNaturalist, and can provide good data that we otherwise may not be able to get. So this has become, again, a very powerful tool, not only for us on the conservation end of things, but for you as a user to learn more about what's out there. And basically how it works, this is the simple version of how it works. You go out, you download the app, you create an account. We'll show you how to do all of that. It doesn't cost you anything. You go out, you take a picture of something, you share it with iNaturalist, and then you can discuss the findings. What that means is if you don't know what it is, iNaturalist will suggest an ID. You can post that to iNaturalist and everybody can chime in and say, hey, that's right, or maybe it's this species. So it's a great big social network of nature lovers, basically. In more detail, first thing, of course, you need to do is create that account. I saw somebody said that you just created their account last night. So you're truly just hatching from the egg, obviously, right? So we need to create that account, and that'll be an account name and a password. And then, of course, you have to have evidence of what you saw. And basically, that's going to either be a photo or a sound recording. You can't upload sound recordings on iNaturalist from your phone, but you can record it on your phone using an app and then sending that to your email and uploading through the computer in terms of sounds. You can do that also with photos, and we'll show you how to do that a little later as well. And then what you saw. So one of the cool things about iNaturalist, the artificial intelligence that it has, let's say you take a picture of a butterfly and you have no idea what it is. iNaturalist will suggest an ID for you, but if you don't know if that's right or not, you can just click on, I know it's a butterfly, that's what I'm going to share it as, and then other people will come in and help identify that to species if it's possible based on your photograph. When you saw it is always important. The nice thing about our phones now, of course, the date and the time are already going to be stamped on there, so you don't have to worry about that. And then finally, where you saw it. And for our purposes with Texas Nature Trackers, really important that you have good accuracy data. So our cutoff in our projects is less than 500 meters. So that means when you take a picture of something, if it's more than 500 meters in terms of where it's actually located, that data isn't as usable as if it's under 500 meters. So something to keep in mind. But generally, if you have a signal, you're going to get pretty good locational data. If you're not, if you're out in West Texas, you may have to do a little extra work to pinpoint that actual location. So our iNaturalist around the world right now, this was as of 2 days ago, actually, almost 60 million observations globally using iNaturalist. I think it's funny that slide I froze had a dandelion as one of the latest observations. In North America, we have 38 million, getting closer to 39 million observations. And here in Texas, we are over the 4 million observation threshold by 85,000 observers, which is a lot of observers, but I think San Antonio alone has 1 million people or something like that. So we've got a long ways to go. We can really build this community science team, if you will, with trying to get more and more people involved and engaged in the natural world. And the reality is that if we don't have that engagement, people aren't going to care. And if people don't care, then we're not going to have good efforts in conservation. So this tool can be one of those things that we can use to engage the public. So that's why we are working so hard to get more and more people, one person at a time, to use iNaturalist and help us out. So getting started with iNaturalist. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, you have to create an account. I think probably everybody here has got an account, but in case you don't, I always recommend going to your computer to start your account. And the reason I say you got to download the app on your phone, but I go to the computer and there's one reason, and that has to do with time zone, and we'll show you what I mean by that. So if you're on your computer and you type in www.inaturalist.org, it's going to take you to a page that looks similar to this, unless you're already logged in. You can either log in or sign up by clicking up here on one of those two choices. If you're going to log in, you're going to put in your username and your password, and then hit sign in, and you're ready to go. If you haven't done that before and you want to start a new account, obviously you would select that tab right there to get you started with the process. This will be the page that it looks like when you open that up and you want to enter your email. You put in a password, confirm the password, your login or username, and then here's where the next thing is important, and it's that right there, the default time zone. For the longest time, and I don't know if it's still true, but the last time I looked, it still was. When you log in and create an account, it's going to set you up on Hawaii time. Don't know why, but you have to go in and click that down arrow and turn that to Central Standard Time. And the reason that's important, So let's say tomorrow you're going to go out to the nature center and you're going to log items. If you're on Hawaii time, those observations are not going to make it into that mini BioBlitz project, okay? So that's why, again, you want to go in and at the website and check and make sure you're on Central Standard Time. All right, so let's take a really quick look first at the web page just to show you what's possible. And then again, as I mentioned, later in the morning, we will spend a considerable amount of time live on the web page, kind of navigating that so you can really see what all the possibilities are in real time. So first of all, when you open up your account, you log in, this is what your page is going to look like, except it won't be my name. There are several tabs across the very top. These are kind of the community tabs, the larger community tabs. We'll go into those a little more detail when we get to the live portion of this. But under your name, there's going to be all of these tabs. Some of them overlap up here, but this is where I spend most of my time are on these here, unless I'm going and looking for a species on iNaturalist generally, then I'll come up into this area. But first of all, there's a profile page. It's going to go in there. You can edit your profile page. Again, here I can check to make sure I'm on Central Standard Time right there. I've got all of my information right here. And there's all kinds of things you can do to make different settings and change settings and control your account as you wish to do so. All right, and then there's observations. If you click on that, it's pretty obvious what that's going to be. Those are all of your observations from this page right here. You can add observations. You can do that by clicking on add observations up here. You can always click on adding observations by hitting upload over here. That's what I use typically. You can do batch editing, which means you can take lots of photographs and download them at the same time onto iNaturalist and work on them as a group as opposed to one by one. And then you can search for your records in there. If you think, man, I can't remember if I put this in there or not, you can search for it and see if you actually did. This was from some time ago on my account. You'll notice a couple of other things. So if I click on this record right here, it's going to open up that record, and then you can click on edit and you can make changes in there if you need to, whether it's accuracy or identification, whatever it is. Over here, one of the other things to notice is it says needs ID here or research grade down on this one. What that means is that in order for a record to really be usable for conservation, we like to have them be research grade. And what that means is that the accuracy is good. There are several parameters, but the biggest thing is that it's ID'd correctly. And when 2/3 of the observers that have looked at that record agree, then it becomes research grade. Things that are not, that say need ID on it, are usually because the photograph isn't very good quality, or literally it's so hard to tell that between that photograph between one species and another, nobody's willing to go out on that limb. And another way it might never become research grade is if, for example, at my house, I have a project that documents all the native wildflowers that I'm putting in my yard. So every time one flowers, I've got a phenological record, but then I've also got that record on iNaturalist, and nobody goes in, and most people don't go in and ID things that are not wild organisms or not, so if they're cultivated or captive, most people leave those alone, and that's fine. But that still gives me an opportunity to document what's going on in my yard. And then, of course, there's IDs, another tab right here. Basically, what that is those are things that you've helped other iNaturalist users identify to help get their records to research grade. And so this is a record of some of the things, some of the work that I've done on here, but it just gives you an idea of how many things you've helped ID. And to show you under identify on this top tab, these top tabs up here, if you click on identify, it's going to show you a screen like this. And what's really cool about this is if you are, let's say you are a bird nerd, you can type in birds here for species, and you can type in Texas or North America, whatever, wherever you want to be, or your county. And then you can help review birds that have been seen in that area and document those. And I'll show you how that works as well when we go live here in an hour or so. And then finally, the final tab just to point out is the projects. You can join projects so that you're contributing data to those projects. A lot of the projects, now I mentioned that our 12 projects are traditional, so you have to physically go to that project and join it. A lot of our projects now are what are called collection projects. So if you take a picture of something in Kerrville and there's a project that includes the map of Kerrville, that area, that location, then that will be pulled into that project if it's the right taxa group. So there are butterfly projects and dragonfly and roadkill and all kinds of projects out there that allow you to contribute data to what they're looking for. And here's a list of some of those projects that I'm a part of or have actually created. It's another kind of cool thing. If you get into this, you can create your own projects, and I'll show you briefly how to do that as well. If you click on all projects up here in the upper right-hand end of the slide, it'll bring you to a page that looks like this. From here, you can type in a search for butterflies if that's something you're interested in, and see if there's any projects local to you or around wherever you're traveling, for example. And you type that in and you get 806 choices of butterfly projects that people have started. I have a son that lives in New Zealand, so that very first project right there, when I get to go visit him in New Zealand, I'm going to be checking that out because I love butterflies and I want to see what is being seen there. So you can use this as kind of a natural history travel planner, if you will, to be able to find out what ahead of time what you might expect out there. So there are lots of different kinds of projects, as I mentioned, that feed off of this. One is a BioBlitz. So tomorrow, you all are going to be doing a mini BioBlitz. And basically what that is when you gather at the Nature Center, you're going to be invited to go out and take pictures of everything that's out there and upload it to iNaturalist. And basically what that's going to give Becky is an hour-and-a-half snapshot of nature at Riverside Nature Center on that particular day in that particular time frame. And this is done frequently in a lot of different places to get a snapshot of the natural world. It's usually a group events. The City Nature Challenge, which I'm going to be bringing up here at the end of the program, is a giant global BioBlitz, if you will. But it really is an effort to go out and really collect a lot of data in a short period of time. And so places like Cibolo Nature Center and Farm do these BioBlitzes as part of their twice a year, I think, well, until the pandemic hit, but normally twice a year field days that they do out here. They document all the things being seen. And right now, I could be out there documenting that pipevine swallowtail. It just flew by my window. You can also start projects on your own. This is one that when I worked at Guadalupe River State Park, we do butterfly surveys there, have been doing them for a number of years. You can start a project. We are documenting all by photograph, all the butterfly species we can find there. We're now past 82 species, but that's pretty cool. Did you say roadkill? Yes, I did, Jeff. There actually are roadkill projects. And believe it or not, roadkill can provide data that we might not otherwise get. For example, eastern spotted skunks, if they get hit by a car, mountain lion. I mean, there's all kinds of ways that roadkill can be used to document nature. It's not good for the critter, but it certainly allows us to get data in. So that's really out there. So this is a project that lots of people, so here's what's really cool about this kind of project. If you're at Guadalupe River State Park and you take a picture of on iNaturalist of a butterfly and upload it, this project's going to automatically grab that image and put it in the project. So not only are we doing surveys, but what's really cool is somebody else might see a rare butterfly in the park, take a picture of it that we don't see in the surveys, and yet it can populate into this project. And what's nice about this is a long-term project to look at trends in different species over time. But again, another great way for community science engagement. And then you can even create a project for your own property. And I have this for my little house, our little house and yard in Bernie. And you can see we've lived there less than 2 years, I think, 2 years. 265 plus species, if that number is actually, I think, a little larger now, that we've observed in a 0.22 acre yard, typical front yard, backyard, and lots of observations. So we're documenting the nature of our yard. And that's what's really cool about that is we transition from St. Augustine grass to native plants. Not only are we documenting what native plants we're bringing in, but we can document all the different insects that eventually come to the yard and the birds that feed on those insects and the lizards and whatever else happens to show up over time. So it's a great way to, again, get a good biological assessment of where you live. And it's fun. All right, so now what we're going to do is go ahead and hit the phone apps. Let me take another drink here. I have to tell you, I'm anxious to get back to in-person trainings because it's just hard to look at a screen all the time. I think I've done about 150 of these. I'm ready to be in person, so hopefully everybody's getting their shots so we can all get back out here and live a normal life here soon. But anyway, getting into the app on your phone. Of course, we're going to show you slides, screenshots of both an iPhone and an Android. The Android will be on the right side of your screen as we go through this. Of course, you have to download the app and then log in. And again, you can create an account from the app. You just can't check on that accuracy in terms of time of the time zone. So something to keep in mind. And so there's the app for iNaturalist right there. And I do want to mention Seek. I saw that Cheryl mentioned Seek there, that she uses that and not iNaturalist. And I want to show you. So Seek is a great app. It's created by iNaturalist. The difference, one of the big differences is that you don't have to have an account to use Seek. As a result of that, though, the data in Seek doesn't automatically upload into iNaturalist. So it's more for yourself as opposed to sharing that information out in terms of conservation on a larger scale. But what's really cool about this app is when you go and point your camera at something, it's actually going to suggest ID before you even take the picture, which is great. And as I believe Cheryl just mentioned, what's really cool about this is because you don't have to have an account, anybody can use it because there's no personal data being shared. And it's particularly good with with children. Everybody's got a cell phone nowadays. And if you could take a child out with their new cell phone and start teaching them about nature, they get, as she said, you get immediate satisfaction. It's going to tell you right what you're looking at. It's gamified a little bit so the kids can earn badges, or you for that matter, can earn badges, and there's little competitions and things like that. It's a great app for what it does. And I do find that a lot of even older people prefer using this because it's not quite as complicated. However, again, there's limits in terms of sharing data to iNaturalist. You can do it, but you still have to have an iNaturalist account to help pull that off. So let's go back to iNaturalist now. So when you open up iNaturalist on your phone, this is what your screen is going to look like. On the iPhone on the left again, and the Android on the right. And let's say we see something and we want to take a picture of it. We have two options. You can either use your camera on your phone, not the app, but the camera, to take the picture of the object and put it into your photo collection. The nice thing, the advantage of that is if, let's say you take a picture of something and you couldn't get super close to it, but you really want to share it on iNaturalist, an iNaturalist photograph you can't edit. But a photograph taken with your phone, you can edit that, save it, and then upload it directly to iNaturalist, the edited version. And that has a lot of value. So you have those two options. But let's say we've got a plant out there and we want to take a picture of it. So on the iPhone, you're going to click this camera right here that says observe. And on the Android, you're going to click on this circle that has a plus sign in it. So you're going to do that. And you take your picture. And oh, by the way, now this has just been a recent update to iNaturalist, the app. When you go and click on that, this is the screen that's going to come up. It's going to show no photo, so you can actually document things without a photograph now, especially if you know what it is. That'd be really, really helpful. If you don't know what it is and there's no record of it, it's going to be hard to ID it. You can choose the camera, the iNaturalist camera, or you can choose a picture from the camera roll. And again, that's where you can edit the photograph and then bring that photograph image straight into iNaturalist without having to take a picture using the iNaturalist phone. But we're going to use the iNaturalist phone. So we took a picture of this plant right here. Notice my hand's in there. And one thing I should tell you is a lot of times scale matters. So by having your hand in the picture, if this is not something you're going to hang up on the wall, having your hand there or having a ruler. And in fact, if we were actually in person, I would be handing everybody one of these little nature tracker rulers, which is pretty cool, a little 6-inch ruler right there. And Becky, what I'll do, if you're listening, I will try to get some of those sent to you. And perhaps you can distribute those folks to those a little bit later. Anyway, so you take a picture and now you have a couple of choices. First, you can go ahead and say, well, let's see what it is by clicking on this or clicking on this right there. Or, and a lot of times, especially with plants, if you can get more than one picture, that can be really, really important to identification. If you want to take another picture of the same organism, what you would do is click on the square box here that has a plus sign, or click on this one over here that has the camera with the plus sign, and then you can take a second picture to add to your observation. And with plants, I usually recommend whole plant, flower, leaves, so at least 3 photographs to be able to aid in the identification of that particular species. So, but let's say that's the only photograph I'm going to take for that particular species because I know what it is. So I'm going to go ahead and click on what did you see? And it's going to give me choices. And this is what's really amazing about this. It's going to give me choices. It's going to start off with, we're pretty sure this is in the genus Quercus, which is an oak. And probably because there's an acorn right there. So if you don't know anything about trees, but you know that there are certain trees that have acorns and you know that's an acorn, you don't know what kind of oak it is, but you know it's an oak, you can go ahead and suggest, you can go ahead and click on oak and it will populate that as a choice. Let's say you have no idea at all. You can leave it blank and let other people on iNaturalist help you with the identification as well. But I know this is a Texas live oak, so I'm going to click on Texas live oak to populate that. Now you'll notice on your iNat app, you can either have it the common name first or the scientific name first. Now a lot of people don't like scientific names, but here's the thing. On iNaturalist, iNaturalist is out of California, and common names of different species of plants pop up differently depending on where you live. So for example, there's a plant that I learned is elbow bush that grows all around here right now in this part of Texas and grows in large parts of the country. But another name for it is called spring herald, okay? So if you didn't know that and the plant came up and it said spring herald and you're thinking it was elbow bush, to verify that, you can look at the scientific name and confirm that there's only one scientific name for everything, right? Granted, sometimes the folks high on the hill change the names, but there's only one scientific name assigned to each plant. As a result of that, you're going to be able to know for sure that that's what you've got. So we're going to choose live oak. Amazing, isn't it? Amazing that this little phone can look at something and go, I know exactly what that is. And so you select live oak. Now you're going to go through the rest of the list and check these things out. There's your date and time on both of the apps. Here's where your locational data is. For our purposes with Texas Nature Trackers, having accuracy less than 500 meters is important. Notice that the accuracy of the same picture taken in the same spot on my iPhone was 128 meters. On the Android, it was only 6 meters. That's due to satellites, whatever satellites are picking up your phone. So you're going to have some variation in there, and that's just something you got to be aware of. All right, so now let me go back. Let me back up one time. If you click on this to change your accuracy or just to double check it's where it's supposed to be, you can click on that box and this is going to come up. You're going to have a map, and it can be either a map or it can be satellite, and you can slide this around, either one of these around, and pinpoint the location right there in the bullseye. So you can do that if you need to. And then make sure that, let me go back one more time, make sure you hit the save button or the check mark that you've done that. Otherwise, it won't save that change. The next thing you're going to look at is going to be geoprivacy. And there are 3 choices in geoprivacy. The default is that the geoprivacy is open, which means that everybody can see the coordinates. But let's say you take pictures of something on your property and you don't want to share the locational data, but you want to find out what in the world it is. You can actually then click on that and you're going to get 3 choices. Open, everybody sees the coordinates. Obscured, you're going to get a big box with a random dot within a 22 by 22 kilometer area. So that you can't really tell. You'll know, but nobody else will be able to know. Or you can completely protect it, and it won't even show up on the map that you're going to see when you look at it on the web page. So you have those choices so you can protect your locational data of your observation. And then there is also captive or cultivated. The default is no, but if you take a picture of a flower at a botanical center or at Riverside that's been planted in a garden that's obviously a planted plant, you would want to put captive or cultivated. You would want to click on that, switch that to yes. No is the default. And in the Android, you'd want to just check that box right there again. And then, of course, there's also projects. You can go in here and select projects specifically. The collection projects, they're going to go up and be just fine. But if you are joining one of our projects, of course, you can go in and select that project and make sure that observation gets to that project. All right, so now you're done. You've checked everything. Everything looks good. Now you're going to share it, but you're going to click share here. You're going to click that check mark up there on the Android. It's going to actually sync it in real time and upload your observation. And there it is right there. You've added a new observation to your list, and you're ready to go on and take another picture and do the next thing. Now, for tomorrow, because you're going to be at one site, you're going to be there for an hour and a half, trying to take pictures of hopefully as many things as you can. There is one setting you can do to adjust and not have to go one observation at a time and go through this whole process. You can take multiple pictures in a hurry and then upload them later. And the way you do that is you're going to go, and we're going to start with the iPhone right here. So if you have an iPhone, what you're going to do is you're going to click on that little gear right there, okay? And it's going to open up this box right here. It's got your username, what you can sign out here. But down here, it has something called automatic upload. And when you have a good, strong signal and you're just doing one at a time, wandering around, you can leave that on. So that means that just like I showed you, when you upload that image, it's going to go ahead and put it in your system and you'll be done with that. But let's say you're at Riverside tomorrow and you want to take lots of pictures of different things, and you don't want to have to go through that whole process every time at that moment, because this is a timed event, right? It's going to go from 9 to 10:30. So what you would do is just click on that toggle and turn automatic upload off. And what that'll do is that'll allow you to take a picture on iNaturalist, log it, and then move on to the next picture and save it, basically. And you're going to have a whole series of saved images as a result of that. Then later you can go back and you can turn automatic upload back on, and then it will upload all your images and you can do the work on those later. Now, in terms of the Android, what you're going to do is you're going to click on that little hamburger symbol right there. This is your next screen. You're going to go ahead and click on settings. Here's your automatic upload over here. It's normal. You notice it's going to be clicked on. Go ahead and click that off, and it'll do the same thing. Again, you can take multiple images of different things, upload them later by switching that back on. So I'm going to recommend that you go ahead and do that for tomorrow, just to make things go quicker, but certainly it's not required. All right, so we're going to use the chat box now. I know it takes a little while to get those chats to pop up. What do we have an image of here? What are these things? Anybody want to type into the chat box what you think you're seeing? Yep, they are in fact black birds. Cheryl says they're turkey vultures. Okay, anybody else? Jeff says turkey vulture. Well, you're close. They are vultures. They are blackbirds for sure, but black birds. But they are actually black vultures. But when my colleague's husband took this picture and entered it into iNaturalist and suggested an ID, here's what he got for suggested IDs. He got American black bear, American crow. There you go, right? Wild boar, American bison, my favorite of the choices, and common raven. What this tells you is that this is not perfect, okay? It's not perfect. And of course, the black bear disagreed vehemently. So just so that you know, just because it gives you a suggested ID does not mean it's correct. It would be lovely to have 100% verification, but that's not going to happen. So that's why you just want to be cognizant of that. Now, if you selected black bear, somebody's going to correct you when you upload it to iNaturalist. Probably not a bear, but a real human. All right, so now let's take a look at photography tips, because one of the keys of being able to have identifiable things on iNaturalist when possible is to have a good quality photograph. And of course, our cell phones now take really good high quality photographs, but there are times when images come in and they're blurry, the wind's blowing, which makes it harder to ID things. You can only do so much, right? So the first thing I want to mention is that when you're doing close-up photography, I've got my personal camera. I have a nice macro lens, so I do a lot of close-up photography. But recently, I was turned on to this thing called a Zenvo Pro Lens, and it's XENVO, as you can see there. It's got a 15 times macro lens that attaches to your phone. And let me go ahead. This is the box that it comes in right here. Really nice little carrying case. And when you pull it out, that is a nice lanyard to carry around your neck. It looks like this, okay? This outer lens right here is actually a wide angle lens. I don't use that except for to protect the macro lens. So I unscrew that. The nice thing about this is when you go to attach it to your phone, these are rubber lined on the top and the bottom so it doesn't slide around on your phone. Then you can take your phone, attach it to the camera, like so. See if you can see it there. It's attached to the camera, and then go and take a picture of something using it. And the great thing about that, I'm going to hold this screen up. I don't know if you'll be able to see my finger here, if I can put it up close enough, but it can do some amazing close-up photography. These 3 photographs were taken using this little Zenvo. Cost about $40 to $45, depending on whether you buy through Amazon and whether you've got Amazon Prime or not. Get a discount for that, I guess. But it's a really good device for taking high quality up close photographs of flowers, leaves, buds, as you can see there. Just to give you an idea, this is a windflower right here, which is a flower that usually measures just barely over 1 inch across. You can see the great detail in there that I couldn't have gotten with my regular phone, or certainly not by using iNaturalist. These are tiny, tiny flowers of elbow bush. Each one of those flowers is probably about 2.5 millimeters long, so it gives you an idea of the quality there. And then here's a close-up of a walnut twig, and you get so much detail, you can actually see the bundle scale scars from last year's leaf in there. So that's something to consider. You can buy those little cheap ones for $5, but they really don't do much. This thing truly, speaking as a naturalist and a photographer that loves macro photography, this thing is a powerful tool. And then also just to show you, if you can always take camera pictures, upload the camera to your the photos from your camera to your computer. This is a work issued one that I was given. It's a Coolpix P900. Nice thing about this is it's got a heck of a macro lens. So if you just watch here, let's see if I can get it to work for you. Oh, come on. Why aren't you working? Of course it's not going to work, because why would it want to do that? Oh, there's no card in there. But the macro extends out about that far. I can take some amazing photographs with this particular camera, and it doesn't have to cost you a fortune. So you don't have to have those, $15,000 lenses unless you're just really into that stuff. But anyway, so a good camera will take you some really nice pictures you can also use. So let's talk about photographing different subjects. So first of all, let's look at wildflowers. By the way, I have no stock invested in any of these things, so I'm not trying to sell you something. What I do is if I'm taking pictures with my macro lens, I'll get a good close-up picture, but then I'll bring it home and I'll edit it to get it even closer. Again, you can do that with the Zenvo. You can do that with your cell phone, especially if you use your cell phone camera instead of the iNaturalist camera when you're documenting. But I want to get a good close-up photograph of that flower. I'm also going to take a picture of the side of the flower so that I get the sepals, I get other characteristics around those flowers right there, which may help in identification. The more images you can put up there, the easier it is for iNaturalist to identify it, the easier it becomes for iNaturalist users that are looking at your image to identify that as well. And then I take a picture of the leaves and the stem just so I get an idea of the size of that. Notice my hand is in there, so I have a reference tool for measuring how long those leaves are. And then I try to take a picture of the entire plant as well. So that's one idea about wildflowers when you're taking pictures. Multiple pictures are better. And again, if you're just doing this for your own sake, maybe not, but for conservation purposes, for scientific use, it helps. So then when you're talking about woody plants, you can get, again, a picture of the whole stem that you're taking a picture of. You can take, and these are, by the way, simple leaves right here, but you have some plants that have compound leaves. So make sure you get the whole leaf, not just a leaflet, but all of the leaflets that would make up an entire leaf. And the way you do that, by the way, just a little naturalist tip, when you look at a leaf and you follow the stem of the leaf to the twig, to the branch, if there's a bud somewhere around there, this is all the leaf. This one, there is no bud here at the base of each of these, so you have to follow that pedicel down to the actual trunk, and you'll find that this whole thing is one leaf. That's a compound leaf. The other thing I wanted to mention is a lot of times you need to look at veination, how the veins are arranged. And sometimes there's lots of hairs and different things on the bottom of the leaf. So a lot of times I'll take the picture of the underside of the leaf to show the veination better from below the leaf than above the leaf, and then also capture things like hairs on the leaf itself. The other thing I'll do with woody plants is to make sure I take a picture of the leaves on the stem. By the way, there are the buds you can see right there on that big tooth maple. But I want to look at the arrangement. Are the leaves opposite one another on the stem, or are they alternate on the stem? If any of you have ever used a taxonomic key to identifying plants, especially with woody plants, they're going to ask you, are the leaves alternate or opposite? So providing that information helps with the identification. And then, of course, if you find, the bark is interesting, you can take a picture of the bark and include that. If you find tendrils or spines or prickles, things like that. If you find the fruit, you can obviously upload those as well. Or if you have the flowers on the plant, you can identify that or take pictures of that as well. By the way, that was also taken with my cell phone with at Zenvo. Pretty good quality, but a lot of detail right there. Looks like it's got a hula skirt around the base of those stamens, it seems like to me. Anyway, in terms of photographing invertebrates, patience, especially if you're using your phone, patience is incredibly important because they have those compound eyes, so they see a lot of movement. So the closer you get, the more likely it is to fly away, as we all know. So one of the tricks that I do with dragonflies and damselflies is if I find they like to perch in certain places, okay, and they'll come back to that perch over and over and over again. And if you're just patient enough and you wait them out and get close as you can, they'll come and accommodate you so you can get a nice close-up picture. Now, I was probably standing about 3 feet away from that. I, of course, edited that photograph, but it gives you great detail by being patient. Same thing with this. I figured out where this neon skimmer was hanging out, and it was an old frostweed stem. He would come back to the exact same place. I got right within literally less than 2 feet from that stem and waited him out. He came back, landed. I took my pictures, and the results turned out pretty good. When you're photographing butterflies, the same issue. They're moving from flower to flower. They're not really coming back to each flower all the time, so that's a little bit different. But the issue is get as close as you can, take as good a picture as you can, and take multiple pictures if you can as well. Not only of the outside of the wings, but if the butterfly presents itself with its wings open, get that photographed as well. That's especially helpful when you come to little tiny butterflies called skippers. But the other thing is keep taking pictures, because an average person might think that those two butterflies are the same species, when in fact they are not, as you can tell when you start looking closer at them. So just keep taking images and go to the flowers where they're feeding. And then sometimes, a lot of times, of course, we want to have the sun behind us when we take our best pictures. But sometimes the characteristics of these butterflies, for example, best show up with the camera, with the sun in front of us and behind the subject. So it's backlit. And you can see that this one has some distinct markings that help with the identification that are harder to see when the sun's behind me. And it also shows this nice, lovely outline right here of a dog face, or the silhouette view of a dog, and helps us identify that as a dog face sulfur, southern dog face. Now, when it comes to birds are a little trickier. If you don't have a camera like I showed you, or a camera with a big lens, and you're just using your cell phone, good luck. Okay, it's not going to work out very well, unfortunately. But if you have a decent camera, and this picture was actually taken from about 50 yards away with a macro lens on my my handheld camera. And so this is, again, one of those things. I took it on the camera, knew I couldn't get any kind of picture like this that would have any clarity at all on my phone, took it home, uploaded it, did some editing so that now the picture is big enough. The quality is still good enough. It's not something I'm going to hang on my wall. But when I submitted it to iNaturalist, it didn't try to identify the tree. It actually worked to identify that as a Say's Phoebe. So you can do some wonderful editing on your computer and then upload those images to iNaturalist. And then we have these, sometimes you get a picture of a silhouette. Well, that silhouette's distinct enough to know it's an upland sandpiper because of the small head, the big body, the long feet, where it's perched, and then that long skinny bill that's pointed downward. So I was able to use that image and actually get it ID'd by iNaturalist, even though I knew what it was. Then you get, sometimes you get a flock of birds. Here we have two different species. We have snow geese, we have Ross's geese. If I put that on iNaturalist like that, it's not going to know which one of those two to identify. So what I'm going to do is take it home, edit it. I'm going to edit out one snow goose image, one Ross's goose image, upload those as two different observations. So there's no confusion with iNaturalist. And then again with birds, another thing to keep in mind, if you find a nest with eggs in it and you don't know what it is, put it on iNaturalist. You'll be surprised how often it will identify what that nest is made up of. And then finally, remember sounds count. This is a little app I use called Voice Recorder. When you open it, it's a free download. When you open it up, and I'm sure there are many more of these out there, looks like an old-fashioned cassette tape player. Harkens back to the past, right? And it makes really good sound recordings on my iPhone. And then I can take that, save it as a name it, save it as an MP3 or MP4, email it to myself, upload it onto iNaturalist from that. And I know some of you are going, man, that's a lot of work. Well, yeah, it's an effort. Science is an effort. It takes a while to get data, good data uploaded. So if you're going to make that effort, these are the things that you can do with it. If you just want to take pictures and you don't care about contributing to conservation, you can use iNaturalist and just do it for yourself, and that's just fine as well. All right, and so as I mentioned earlier, dead animals count, as do animal tracks. Not every animal track will be identifiable, but a lot of them are, if they're good quality tracks, like that armadillo right there, and of course then the striped skunk that was run over by a car. If you're going to do dead animals on the roadside, be very careful when you get in and out of your car. Okay, just a thing there. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're at 11:18 right now. So what I want to do is take a break. You probably all need to get up and stretch. I know I do. What I'd like you to do is to get your phone open to iNaturalist and head outdoors to your yard, or to, if Becky, if you want to do it at the nature center, and just take a picture. Take the next 10 or 15 minutes and take a few pictures. Practice uploading to iNaturalist, okay? And then we're going to meet back here at let's say 11:40, and see if you have any questions up to now and have any questions when you were out there practicing. So stretch, go to the bathroom, get something to drink, go outside, spend a few minutes practicing, and we will see you back here in about 22 minutes and give you that time. And then what we'll do is we will talk about City Nature Challenge, answer your questions about if you had any challenges or issues out there taking some photographs. And then we will go to the website live and navigate around that and show you all the different things you can do on the website. So if everybody wants to do that, I'm going to go ahead and take a break, and you're going to take a break, and we'll see you back here at 20 till noon. And we will definitely wrap up by 12:30. All right. And again, if you have questions, put them in the chat box, and we'll get to those when we get back from the break. Good luck. Go out and take some pictures. I'm going to go out and take some pictures so I can show you how to upload photographs from my camera onto iNaturalist. So I will see you back here in 20 minutes. Thanks, everybody. All right. Hopefully everybody is back. It is 11:40, so we're going to jump right back into it here. Hopefully everybody got out and was able to use take some pictures. I got a message from Trudy saying she was not having any luck taking the camera on. My camera won't work on iNaturalist. As I mentioned in a message to you, let's chat at the end of this and talk in person, and maybe I can help you out with that before tomorrow so we can get that ironed out. Did anybody else have any issues or anything that they want to put in the chat box so that we can address that? I'll give you about a minute to add any questions you might have or anything that came up that was an issue. If I don't see anything on the chat box, I will continue on. Let's see, wind, yeah, wind. Yeah, wind is a problem today. It was a little breezy out there, wind. Let's see, how to use two hands when I need three. Yes, that is a trick, Cheryl. There is no doubt about that. You'll learn to do the best you can. One of the things I've learned to do is actually be very skillful with holding, if it's a plant, holding the plant just out of the view and holding the plant, holding my camera, and trying to do all of that at once. And most of the time that works. Not always. If it's an animal, if it's an insect on a flower, it becomes more difficult. So then what I end up doing is taking multiple pictures. And in that situation too, when I know I'm gonna need to take multiple pictures because the wind's blowing, I'll go ahead and use my phone camera because I can take several pictures much faster than I can on iNaturalist. So I may take 4 or 5 pictures and then hope that 1 or 2 of those, when I review them, it works well enough that I can then upload those directly to iNaturalist through my phone. So let's see, monarch at RNC, but not able to, oh, that's cool. Yeah, there's still some monarchs around, that's good. It took a few minutes to upload. Is that normal? That may be part of your, that may be just part of the strength of the signal that you had. But I've had that happen too with iNaturalist. I'll upload something even when I think I've got a strong signal, and it might take longer than I think. And you just have to be, once you do it, you just have to be patient. But if you're in a place where it's a weak signal, you may consider turning off that auto upload thing, turn that to the off position that I showed you earlier, and then go ahead and take all your pictures, then get into your house where you've got a better signal and upload them all at once. So, but it will take a little bit of time. Let's see here, difference between auto upload on and off. Do each ask to retake or use the photo? Yeah, so let's see here. If I go, let me answer that in real time so that I give you the right answer. So if I go to my auto upload and I turn it off, okay, then I am back to my picture and I take a picture and I take a camera roll and I take a picture of that. Use the photograph. And then, so once you've taken the photograph, when that is off, you can then come down when it'll say, what did you see? But at the bottom, it'll say save. So I can just save that. And then now I can go and take another picture using iNaturalist, okay? And take another picture. There, I'll take a picture of that. Of course, now these are not something I'm going to ultimately save. I'm going to save that. Now I've got these things waiting to upload. I don't know how well you can see that, but waiting to upload there. Wish I could show this thing live, the phone live. Let's see. You each ask to retake or use the photo. Yeah, you're always going to ask, do you get to, do you want to use the photograph or not? So each one of those is going to do that. But if you like the outcome, go ahead and take that and use it. And then I will say, if you're in that auto off, if you're going to take more than one picture of the same thing, make sure you click the box to take that second picture, and you save that one. And now you're going to have both of your pictures. Then you can go ahead and hit save to save those two pictures, if that makes sense. Okay. And Patty, we can talk about that when we go after we're done this morning, and we can talk voice to voice, and hopefully that'll help you out. It's always hard to give the right, to know if I'm giving the right answer when I can't see a face or hear a voice. So, but we'll try to get that. Let's see here. I don't see anything else after that. So let's go ahead and just jump into this and then go live to the website. And then we'll have more time to go come back and turn this, stop sharing, and I will, we can see each other and chat about things. All right, so save the date. Observe for City Nature Challenge. City Nature Challenge is a global event. Metropolitan areas all over the world participate in this. It's a fun competition. This year, because of the pandemic, it's going to be kind of a hybrid event where they're encouraging people to just get out and take photographs and just get some time spent in nature, which has its own restorative value as well. Trust me, I know this for sure. And the event is actually from April 30th through May 3rd. It's a Friday through a Monday. And you just go out, if you're in one of those metropolitan areas, take as many pictures as you can. Where you live up in Kirk County, last year we added Kirk County to the San Antonio part of the competition. So you are part of that. Even though the map I'm going to show you in a minute doesn't show that. It's an old map. And I apologize for that. On the website, it's updated. And then from May 4th to the 9th, that's the identify time. That's when people can sit down, identify things that came in on the project to get those things up to research grade. And then later, we'll actually go in and pull data from SGCNs and produce a report that'll show how many contributions came in. I should also tell you that if, for example, you live outside of Kirk County and you're outside of the metropolitan area for a particular city, they've now created an event for anyone to participate, regardless of where you are. So if you take a picture anywhere, you can join that project and upload your images. So if you're not in a big metro area, you can still participate in the event. So I wanted to make sure I shared that with you, okay? All right, I want to do some things over here. That's the screen I want, okay. All right, so that is City Nature Challenge. And I would really encourage you, if San Antonio usually finishes about 4th or 5th, and this year we've got 14 different metropolitan areas designated for City Nature Challenge, which is almost a doubling of last year. So it's our biggest event in Texas. And in fact, I think somewhere in the neighborhood of 35% of the counties in Texas, and of course there's lots of counties, are participating this year. So it should be a lot of fun. This is what the web page looks like. If you go into projects and type in City Nature Challenge and you type in San Antonio, you can go up and join the project if you want to. That'll give you updates or anything like that, but you don't have to join it. This is one of those projects, if you're within the mapped area and you're taking pictures over those 4 days, it's going to add to the project. So I encourage you to get out there. Let's, Dallas and Houston are always winning. I'd sure like to knock one of them out and get San Antonio in our area up there at the top one of these days. So anyway, it's a great event. It adds data. It gets people outside, gets people connected to nature. And it's just a fun way to spend those 4 days. And for us, a perfect time of the year. Again, you can see these are all the areas in Texas that are participating. Again, Kirk County should be right there. It should be pink. It's not, and I apologize for that, but it will be. It is part of it. So trust me on that. But you can see all the I-35 corridor for the most part is taken. We've got El Paso in there. We've got obviously the coast down here and here. We've got Wichita Falls out here in the Panhandle. So lots and lots of great places. Lubbock and Amarillo and Abilene and all kinds of places are participating for the first time, several of them this year. So that's kind of exciting. So my address is Kerrville and my county is Gillespie. Gillespie County is not on that list, and I apologize for that. That's one we hadn't had any expressed interest in adding Gillespie County. So what you'll need to do is cross the border and get them to count. But for the overarching project that I just mentioned, that if you take pictures in your backyard in Gillespie County, it will count for the overarching project so that you'll still be able to get credit for that. And we still certainly will take a look at that and see if there is data in there that we could incorporate into our work. And here are some of the websites. You can take a screenshot of this and check it out. You can also go to our TNT page, click get involved, and there are the links for the City Nature Challenge and for the different cities and all the information that you need for that. So let's see here. Now, just to kind of show you tomorrow, when you go to the Nature Center, first of all, have fun. I wish I could be there with you. We're just not quite doing things in person yet with our team. Hopefully that's changing soon. I'm ready to get away from the computer screen. But we have set up a project for you on iNaturalist called Riverside Mini BioBlitz. It's going to go from 9 to 10:30 tomorrow morning. You can see when I copied this and put it on the slide program this morning, there was 23 hours, 31 minutes, and 2 seconds. So this is going to be a live event. It's going to go live at 9:30, and if you're there taking pictures of things, everything that you take a picture of, assuming you're in Central Standard Time, will go into this project. So I'll be anxious when I get back from Big Bend to actually take a look at this and see how y'all did. And then Becky will be able to take a look and see what species were found at the Nature Center on that in that 90-minute period of time. So anyway, so that's kind of cool. So good luck with that. Okay. And I know it's still a little early in the spring, but hopefully you'll find some good things to take a look at. All right, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to end this thing. You do not need to join that project. No. Tomorrow, what's going to happen when you start taking pictures, that project is automatic. It's a collection project. It's automatically going to grab your observation in that boundary of Riverside Nature Center and plug it right into the project. Okay, so you do not have to join that project. Good question. All right, so we're going to go to the website live now. So I'm going to drop out of this PowerPoint, but I'm going to show you one more slide so we don't have to go back to it. This is my contact information. Tanya's contact information is on here as well. Those are our usernames. You can follow different people if you want to on iNaturalist. My email address is there, and please, if you have any questions after this, you can certainly email me those questions, and I'll try to help you out. Do you have to have your Bluetooth on for GPS capture? I don't think so. I don't think that's the case. I've done iNaturalist with it on and off, and it has not mattered one whit. So I don't think that's the case. You do have to have your, there is a setting in your phone where you can turn off your geographical settings. But that's, I think most people, I don't think, mess with that. And I'd have to dig a little bit to find that out. But no, I don't think Bluetooth has to be on for the GPS to work. And if I'm incorrect on that, somebody can answer me, but I'm just about 100% sure that's not the case. All right, so what I'm going to do is get out of this presentation now, and I am going to, let's see here, I'm going to get that, and I'm going to open up the web, and I am going to go to this page right here, and hopefully you're seeing my iNaturalist page. Somebody can just type something into the chat and just give me a confirmation on that. That would be awesome. Yes, okay, thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Becky. And then, so there's my page. So first of all, I want to just go through this page and show you all the options here. And then before we leave today, I did go out and take some pictures with my camera. I'm going to go ahead and upload some pictures into iNaturalist just to show you how it actually works from your camera, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and get started here. First of all, here again, these are the community, greater community tabs. Explore would be if I click on Explore, for example. This is going to show all the observations in North America. You can do all kinds of things here. You can go look for a species. And of course, my computer is going to behave slowly because why wouldn't it do that when I'm in the middle of a presentation? So give it just a second here. There we go, they're pulling it up. So these are all the observations in North America. Again, today, right, as of right now, 38,822,973 observations, okay? You can also do species searches up here. So if I were to type up loggerhead shrike, how about if I spell it right? Loggerhead shrike. Notice you don't want to just hit go. You want to go ahead and click on the actual species. Learn the hard way if you don't do it so there are 12,966 observations of these across North America. If I want to do only Texas, let's see what happens. And I select Texas, USA. 3,336 observations of loggerhead shrikes in Texas. So that's one way to search for individual species. Now, while we're here, I want to show you another thing that's kind of cool. Let's say you're a master naturalist or you're working in an education setting and you are asked to put together a program on some natural history topic and you don't have all the great photographs that you'd like, and you're like, okay, how am I going to get these pictures? So one of the neat things about iNaturalist is you basically have this huge photo collection that is available to you. Now, not all of them are available to you, but let's just take this picture right here, for example, and we'll click on it right here. All right, so here's this observation. The observer is Ad Connings or whatever. That's their username. If I go to right here and it says CC and I click on that, left click, it says Ad Connings, some rights reserved, okay? So if I go and click on that information, see where it says information here. It's going to pull this up. It's going to tell me what the result, it says that some rights are reserved right there. If I go back, so that just verifies that. If I go and click on this, let's see here. I should be able to click on that. I should be able to. Oh, I know. So what that means is that by clicking on that part, yeah, you don't click on the name, you click on the actual CC. What this does is it takes you directly to what you can do with that photo image. So with this particular one, you can share it, you can adapt it. As it says there, you have to give an attribution, not for commercial uses, no additional restrictions. So you have this huge potential library of images that you can use for program development, as long as you give attributions. Now, some of the photographs in here are protected, so you can't do that. But I just wanted to reveal that to you. And again, let me show you that again, because I think I might have confused you. You click on CC, and then you bring your mouse up here and you click on this part that just went dark. That's going to take you to what you can do with that photograph. So again, a really wonderful library source of images for using in programs, brochure development, things like that, with the proper acknowledgement. So anyway, so that's one way to search for things on iNaturalist on the web page. Already pretty powerful tool. Now, if I go to my observations, let's go into my observations. I'm going to skip that. Now I want to go over to community, and you'll notice there's a drop down. If I want to search for somebody that's an iNaturalist user and follow them, exactly. You want to acknowledge the photographer. I would go ahead and what I do is I just copy and paste that little thing that pops up when I click on CC, and then I'll put on iNaturalist. So I'll give both credit. Okay, so that makes sense. That's a good question. Thank you for clarifying that, helping me clarify that. So you can look for people here. You can look for projects here. You can look at journal posts. There's a forum here with people talking about different issues on iNaturalist. And then over here under more, we're going to skip identify for just a moment. Here's taxa info. This is another place where you can do a search for any species that happens to be in iNaturalist and do the same kinds of things I've already shown you. So if I click on that, for example, again, this one takes a few seconds to load. I apologize. And then also you'll notice it says guides, places, site stats. Places are, when you're setting up a project, you have to have a designated place. That's what that refers to. So again, here's a place, taxa info. Again, if I look up, let's just look up monarch butterfly, because I'm guessing there will be a bunch of those. So I'm going to go up and look up monarch. And this is going to be in Texas. There are 16,000 observations there, okay? So again, that's a source for looking up individual species. And then the other thing I want to show you now, though, this is what's really cool, is I want to go to identify. So that is looking for individual species under more. Oh, and one other thing before I leave this, down here, it says help under more. Actually, we just say help up here. This is one of the best places to go if you have questions about iNaturalist. They have video tutorials. They have all kinds of questions. I've never had to ask a question I couldn't find the answer to on this help page. So it's a wonderful resource if you're having issues. And then, of course, under the forums, you can actually ask questions under the forum, and there'll be people on there that'll help you out as well. And again, those forums were under community right here. There's that forum thing. All right, so let's go to identify. Let's just click on that. It's going to take a moment to load up here. What these are all the items out there that have been photographed that need identification help. Okay, so if we're just patient here, these should pop up here. There they are. So these are all images that people didn't know, or they put a suggested ID on it, and you're going to agree or disagree. So for example, if I want to agree with something, I know that's a Canada J, so I can go ahead and click down here, agree. And that just means that I've also agreed that that's what this is a Canada J. Eventually, it's going to acknowledge that and mark as reviewed. Again, we just have to be patient here. And eventually it will work. There we go. So now notice it's grayed out. That means I've already reviewed that one. Let's say if I want to take a closer look because I'm not 100% sure that this is what it is, I'm going to go ahead and click on that image. I'm going to be able to now look at the actual observation. Notice that they think it's a Vesper sparrow. Somebody's come in and said, yeah, I think it's a Vesper sparrow. If you want, you can go over here and go, if you look at that, it's got the eye ring. It's got the little mark on the wing right there, that little rusty color. I'm going to hit agree there. I don't know why that didn't work, but it didn't. Sometimes you got to hit it twice. And notice this is out of Baltimore, Maryland, just so you know. So you're helping somebody in Baltimore, Maryland nail this one down. And let's say you didn't agree with this and you wanted to kind of suggest a new ID, you could come down here and add ID. You could also then comment why you think it's that or why you don't think it's that. So that works as well. So there's my comment right there. And then that adds also, by the way, to the list of things that you've helped ID. So I'm done with that. So I'm got that one taken care of. So now let's say you live in Texas, let's say you love butterflies. Well, let's type up butterflies. And this is a great way, by the way, to sharpen your naturalist skills, okay? So I have an office full of field guides. I mean, my gosh, I've just got them. My most recent field guide I just picked up recently was this guy right here, Wasps of Eastern North America. Amazing book, by the way, if you're into wasps. And boy, are there a lot of different kinds of wasps. But I want to help identify people's butterflies, okay? But now I don't want to do it across North America because I don't know every butterfly in North America. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and type Texas. And I'm going to type Texas right there and hit go. Now what I've got are butterflies seen in Texas that need help with identification, okay? So I can go in here and I can look, well, here's one that's pretty obvious. There's a monarch. And I'm going to go ahead and say, yep, I agree that in fact is a monarch. Again, it's going to do that spinning thing. And then I can go over here and this says dusky blue ground streak. Here's one that's a juniper hair streak. I can go through here and help people identify their butterflies. And what's really great is I can get my skills sharpened in the process. The one thing I would tell you is if you're going to identify things, make sure you're right. Don't besmirch your reputation by constantly misidentifying things. That doesn't do you any good, and it certainly doesn't do them any good. So, but again, a great way to practice your skills in using identify. Okay, now let's go over here to the right. Notice there's this upload button. That's when we're going to upload photographs. Okay. Over here is a mailbox. So if you're communicating with another iNaturalist user through iNaturalist, that's where you're going to get messages. Some people, when you're using it, they'll send you a message and say, hey, I saw you have this photograph of this. Would you give us permission to use it in this publication? I've had 3 or 4 of those, which is kind of exciting that your pictures are getting shared elsewhere. And then this is just comments on your observations. This button right here is a drop down that gets you, can go, this is your tabs, but I'm going to go back to my dashboard by clicking on that. And here we are back to where we started, okay? Now let's take a look at these things across the way. Again, my profile right here. There's what I've put in there so far. It tallies up my observations, species identifications, that sort of thing. If I want to edit my account for some reason, I can just click on edit account and settings. And I can make whatever changes I need to make on this page. Notice I put a description of what I am or who I am, a photograph, that sort of thing. And then you can also go to your account. There's things you can look. Here's the Central Standard Time. You can look at notifications. You can change those if you want to. I'm going to turn that on, actually. And notice if you do that, you want to hit Save Settings. Make sure you save it or it doesn't save it. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. All right, so now I'm going to go back to my dashboard. So that is your profile page, okay? And if you click on observations, obviously, this is going to go to all of your observations, okay? And you can display them in 3 different ways. You can display them as a grid. Here are all of my most recent observations that I've added to iNaturalist. We're going to add to that today. Well, I'd sure like to know why that picture didn't turn out. You can list them out like so, or you can show them on a map like so. So this is all the different places I've been and used iNaturalist, okay, around the country so far. So that's the way to look at your observations. All right, now I'm going to go back over here, go to dashboard. Oh, and by the way, if you want to look at your observations, let's say you want to edit an observation, you can go in, select that observation, and you can go up here and hit edit right there. So if I hit edit, and I see that my location, I want to double check my location for accuracy, okay? So I'm going to click on this, I'm going to zoom in to where this observation is. And there it is. Now, notice it just moved because I clicked in the screen. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that observation back. And I'm going to go find where that observation belongs. There's Cibolo Creek right there. There's San Antonio Avenue. Here we go. This observation should be right there. Okay, so now I've placed it there. Now, one of the things I'm going to show you, when you're readjusting an observation, if you have a small area like I've got here, I've got to make sure that circle right there is inside the boundary of my place, or it won't show up on my project, okay? So I'm going to shrink that just a little bit more. All I'm doing there, by the way, is grabbing one of those white dots, stretching it out, stretching it like that. If I wanted to move it over here, I could left click it and put it right there. If I want to move it back to where it should be, I'm going to left click over my house, and that's about where my observation is. When I'm done with that, I'm going to come up here to the upper right-hand corner and get out of this screen. Now I've made a change, right? I want to make sure I go down and hit save. So anytime you edit your photo, make sure you hit save at the bottom, or you will not save your changes to your observation, okay? All right, we're going to let that do its work. Hang on just a second. There we go. So now I can go back to my dashboard right there. So that's your observations. You can also edit observations by clicking on that tab as well. Here's a calendar. The calendar, by the way, shows you when you've been uploading images, when you've been doing that. Okay, so if you clicked on the 5th of February, there's one observation. Let's see if I can get anywhere with that. One observation, 3 observations, 5 observations. I guess maybe you can't get from that. I was hoping you could, but maybe not. Oh, no, you can. It's just going to it. There it is. There's my observation from that day. Okay. So there's a way to look at and verify. Oh, that's when, if you remember, you can't remember where it is in your list, but you remember the day, you can go through it and check on it that way. All right, so then down here are IDs. This is where you've done IDs. These are the IDs you made. Remember, we just made these 2 IDs right here, 3 IDs. So I just did those. Now we're going to go back to the dashboard again. Then I'm going to come down all the way over here to projects. All right. If I click on projects, it will load. These are all the projects that I'm a part of or following or have joined. Okay. So projects like this one, if I take a picture of something in my yard, it's going to go automatically into that. The Birds of Texas is one of those projects that is a TNT project, which means I have to join that. And then when I upload it, I have to actually add it to the project. I'm going to show you how to do that in just a moment, once you've joined the project. All right. So those are your project page. Let's say you want to search for a project. If you go up here to this tab and click on all projects, here's a page. You can start a project right here. We probably don't have time to do that today. But we might have, but I don't know that we will. Let's say I want to find projects on butterflies, because I'm going to, I'd like to be able to share my observations of butterflies and learn more about butterflies. I'm going to click on butterflies and hit go. Here are all the projects. When I had that slide up earlier, it was 800 projects. There's now 1,300 projects on butterflies. So let's just say I was going to be going to Australia and I was going to be looking at different kinds of butterflies. I could actually click on Australian butterflies and moths that somebody started as a project. You can learn what they're doing with this project by clicking here. You can also then join this project or look at all the observations. So you could actually go down here and actually find out where these different butterflies are being seen, okay? So that's a way to learn how to plan a natural history trip, whether it's there or whether it's to the valley or to a bird watching spot. It's just one way to find out what's been seen recently. All right, so that's one way to use the project page right there. All right. Now let's do this. Let's make sure that we show you how to upload images from a camera. So I went out and took some pictures during our break. I'm going to knock that screen down a little bit. I'm going to bring over my, I hope I'm going to bring over my, there it is. I'm going to shrink this up a little bit. Hopefully you can see that as well. So I've got a disc that I've taken out of my camera. Oh, that's great, Becky. That's awesome. Notice the note down there says Local Visitors Bureau uses iNaturalist to tell people where blue bonnet are being sighted. What a great way to do that. All right, so I'm going to go down here. I'm going to take a look at the pictures that I've been uploading that I took today. So now I've got my photos up open on my disk. I now want to upload. So this button right here is upload again. Now let me show you something here. So you got 2 choices here, okay? You can upload from there, or you can add observations from this tab right here, okay? For some reason, I always use the upload button. So I'm going to click on the upload button. Now I can drag and drop photographs. Okay, so let's see here. I think I'm going to use that one right here, hopefully. Come on, there it is, right there. Now, as I look at that picture, if I want to look at it and see, is that a good enough picture? Boy, there's a lot going on in that picture, isn't there? There's a ball moss here. Obviously, there's an oak tree here. But what I really want to upload is that bird right there, is that white-eyed vireo. So this was taken with my camera, by the way. But we'll do another one here in just a moment. Well, so I've got that up there. Let's test and see if that's going to pick up that bird, because my other option is to open up that image, edit it on my computer screen, and then save a copy and then upload that saved copy. Let's go ahead and see what it's going to suggest to me. Hey, it did it. It did it. Look at there. How about that? I'm telling you, this artificial intelligence on this app is unbelievable. So I know that's a white-eyed vireo, so I'm going to select white-eyed vireo. The other thing, because I was using my camera, even though my camera has a GPS on it and will give me an approximate location, I want to double check that. So I'm going to click on this little symbol right here. And there it is. Now, one of the things you have to keep in mind, and I use satellite images just so that you know. Here it is right here. Now, I was standing here and taking that picture. But keep in mind, when you're taking the picture with your camera, the GPS mark is where you're standing. If that bird was over here, I would need to move this over to there by just left clicking on the center dot and dragging it over there. But I was standing there and I was actually photographing the warbler was actually in that tree right there. Make it just a little bit bigger, or the vireo, I'm sorry. So now I've done that, I've adjusted that. Notice my accuracy is 4.2 meters, so that's well within the 500 because I want to add this to the Birds of Texas project. So I've done that. I'm going to hit update observation. So now I've got a good accurate observation. Notice I've got timestamp and date. The location is taken care of. It's a wild organism, so I don't have to check that. It's a public location. I'm here at the Nature Center. I don't need to keep this hidden from anybody. But again, if I wanted to, I could go down here and check either obscured or private. We mentioned that earlier. Now what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and click one more time. I'm going to click on projects, this tab right here. And if I move my mouse over that rectangle, here are all the projects I can add this to. So one I'm going to add it to is the Cibolo Nature Center and Farm, because that's where I was. Now I want to add it also to the Birds of Texas project right there. Okay. So we've got those projects. We've got 2 projects here. We've got all of this checked. I'm now ready to submit that one observation. So I'm going to come up here and hit submit. Submit, please submit. There we go. And this takes a little time. Got to be patient sometimes. What this is going to do is going to add it to my list of observations. Now I'm ready to upload one more thing if I want to. There we go. All right, so now it's on here. It's just waiting for verification of its identity to make it a research grade item. Okay. Now let's go back to upload. Oh, very good. We'll talk about that. So the question is, how do you do it from your camera? So let's say you go out with your camera and you take a picture with your camera phone. Okay. So what you're going to do now this is an iPhone. You're going to go to your photo collection, okay, to make sure it's there. All right. And once you know it's there for sure, you're going to open up iNaturalist, and then you're going to hit observe. Okay, so or the plus sign, or the plus sign in the circle if it's a Android, and then it's going to give you 3 choices. I think I showed you this in the presentation. The one over here is from your camera roll. If you click on the camera roll, it's going to take you to all your pictures that are on your camera roll on your phone, and then all you have to do is select the one you want by tapping on it, and then hit add. It'll say add up in the upper right hand corner. Add that and it will immediately take you back to iNaturalist, and that image will be uploaded there. Hopefully that answers the question, Patty. Let me know if you still have questions about that. All right, so now let's go back to upload. Now just to show you don't have to do this one at a time. I've got several images here that I want to upload because I don't want to sit here and do this one at a time. So I'm going to take this image and drag it over here, and I'm going to drag this image over here. I'm going to do this one, and then I'm going to do this one, and I'm going to do this one, and let's go a little further, and then I'm going to do this one right there. All right, so now I've got 6 images. I'm going to go back to full screen. Now, one of the things you're going to notice is these 2 images. These were all with my camera again. Oh, yes, you can delete an observation, and I will show you how to do that. So don't let me forget to do that. So here are these 2 images. That's the same plant, 2 different images, same plant. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them together in one observation instead of 2 separate observations, since it's the same organism. So I'm just going to left click on this, and I'm going to drag it over. Now you'll notice this says 1 of 2. And if I hit this button, there's my second photograph. Okay, so you can combine photos of the same image. This one is just a single image. This one, I actually have 3 photographs I took of this particular plant. So I want to combine these 3 into one observation. So now with 3 images, again, I click here and I click here. You see that they're all there. All right. So now I'm going to go, the first thing I'm going to do with each of these is I'm going to click on species name, and it's going to load suggestions. Now here is what I was talking about earlier with common names versus scientific names. I know that this is Foresteria pubescens, okay? However, I've never heard it called stretchberry. That's the common name that iNaturalist has given this plant. So again, that's where if you know the scientific name, you're a step ahead when they use weird common names that you've never heard of. Common names a lot of times are regional names. All right, so I've added the species list to that. Now we're going to try this one. This doesn't even have flowers. I do know that this is frostweed, so I'm going to come down here. But let's say I didn't know for sure. I could click on Verbicina here, the genus name, and let somebody else help me with identification down the road. Okay. All right, so I know this is Virginia, or it's frostweed. And then finally, I've got this one with 3 images. We're going to click on this one. And we've got all kinds of things here. Inland wood oats. And I've got rattlesnake master. Wow, what a choice that is. That's completely different. And here's one called Heller's rosette grass. Well, they're using Heller's rosette grass because the grass blade of both these species looks similar. However, I'm going to, and you can, let's say if you wonder, I wonder if that's the right one, you could actually click on view and look at those pictures of that, and then you can reject that or not. But I know it's inland wood oats, so I'm going to click it on that. But let's say I changed my mind. I can click on this again, and I'm going to come down here and say, I want to look at this rosette grass and just make sure. So I'm going to click view. It's going to take you to another tab. And now I'm going to look at it and oh man, that is not the seed head that I took a picture of. So I know that that's not the correct one. So now I'll just get rid of that. Now I'm going to come down here. I'm going to look at this inland sea oats and see what my second choice looks like and see if I'm a better match. And yep, that's what the old seed heads look like right there. And the leaves look like that. I now know that this is the correct choice. I can come down here and select that. Again, if I didn't know, I would just choose the family name, whatever that first listing is, and let somebody else help me with the ID. All right, now notice this one, for whatever reason, this one has location. These don't have any location data. Okay, so this gets a little trickier. So I'm going to click on this one first. And yeah, I was right about in there. So that's pretty accurate. But notice this says nothing about accuracy. And if you were going to submit this from your camera to an iNaturalist TNT project, you would need to have something in that accuracy. So the best way to do that is just go up here nearby, left click, and that then all of a sudden now I've got accuracy of 2 meters. Now that's not exactly where I took it, so I'm going to move it over a little bit. And just to be safe, because I can't see under those trees, I'm going to increase the location data a little bit. So now I'm very confident that it's within 10 meters of where that shows. I'm going to click on update observations, like so. All right, so that one's done. Now this one doesn't have a location, any locational data. But what's interesting is it shows a picture in the same area. And I don't know why iNaturalist does that. Maybe I wasn't getting a good signal at that moment. But now that's where it is. But now I still have to give it a location. So even though the photo's there, so I'm going to increase that. And I'm pretty sure that's in that area right there. Again, to increase the circle, you click on one of the white dots, move it in or out like so. If you want to move the entire thing, you can just click the center one and move it over. Hopefully you're all able to see that. I'm pretty comfortable with 11 meters. I'm going to update my observation. That one's done. Same thing with this one. Now notice there's 2 photographs there. Now that's about right. I came off of here and took pictures right about there. I'm going to increase that circle a little bit to make sure I'm pretty accurate. There we go. Now I've got all my observational data in here. The date and time is in here. The species is identified. Now I want to go and I want to submit these to projects. So there's a couple of things to do. You could go ahead and hit select all, right? Then we could click on projects, and I think this will work. I want to add this to Cibolo Nature Center and Farm. There we go. Now let's double check and see if that worked. Notice this one got added to one project. This one got added to a project. When you highlight it, there that observation comes up on your left. So those are all on the Cibolo Nature Center project. So I've done that work now. That's all I have left to do. I'm comfortable with everything I've got there. I'm going to now go and submit those 3 observations. I'm seeing a long note from Cheryl, so let me read that here. I find my observe is a lineup of the photos. Looks like I can comment as a narrative or suggest idea, but not all this other info. Yeah. Actually, on your iNaturalist account, a lot of cleanup to do. You can make comments for certain. When you open up iNaturalist and you have an observation, let me get out of this, and I open this up. If you open up an observation on iNaturalist, it's going to open it up, and you can actually edit right up here. It says edit, and so you can go ahead and edit your observation if you need to. That's also the place where you can. I'm not going to get it in focus probably, but that's where you can also delete an observation on your phone to answer that one question. So that's when you hit edit for an observation you've opened on your phone, okay? When I'm done, so now I'm going to go back. All right, so you can edit on your phone, but I think it's easier to do it here just because it's bigger and I can see what I'm doing. Now, let's say I have an observation here that I really don't like this one right here. I don't know why it doesn't have a photo. I took photos of it, but I must have failed to click the right button. So I actually want to delete this observation. I don't really want it. I'm going to go back and take the picture again today, make sure I have photos edited, uploaded with it. Now, here's another thing. 2 things I can do here. I can delete this image by clicking on this button and hitting delete. Hopefully you can all see that. Or I can retake those pictures of the same observation and upload the photographs that I thought I had taken a picture of. Okay, so let's just keep this right here, okay? And I'm going to go back into iNaturalist on the phone, and I know you can't see this, so I'm going to try to describe it. But I've got, here it is right here. Oh no, the photograph's there. Let's see here. Let me, I need to readjust my settings. There we go. Go back to that. Now it's uploading. Let's see if it actually will. It says it's syncing. It's weird that didn't show up. I must not have let it sync before I was done last night. Here it comes. I'm going to be real curious to see if that photograph uploads onto this image, onto this updated screen. And then I'll show you how to delete a couple of observations that are really fake observations, just so you know. Thank you for your patience. Okay, let's refresh this. Boom, there's the picture. I refreshed it. So I was able, what had happened is I didn't allow it to upload on my phone. So now what's happening is I've got 3 additional observations that are trying to upload that I do not want to have. So I'm going to go to my dashboard, and I am going to go to my observation page, and I'm going to go to my list. Notice right here, I took a picture of a cell phone. That is not an observation that I want to have on my iNaturalist profile anywhere. So I'm going to open up that observation. Hang on here. I see we're getting close to 12:30, so we'll be wrapping up here in just the next minute or so. If my computer will work quicker. Thank you all for your patience. web page, maybe that'll help. Sometimes patience is a virtue, isn't it? Well, it's always a virtue, but sometimes we have to practice it more than maybe we want to. There it is. Okay, so now that is not something I want to keep on iNaturalist, because obviously it's not a plant or an animal. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to click on this little box where it says edit, and I'm going to go ahead and hit delete. It says, are you sure you want to delete this observation? The answer is, of course I do. So I'm going to delete that, and it's now in the process of deleting. I see it spinning up here in the upper left-hand corner. Ah, very good. It did delete it. Now let's go back to dashboard real quick. Boy, isn't that a picture? My goodness. All right, I'm going to go to observations. And here's another one I don't want. Okay, that's not the same one. It's a different picture. So again, I can go in here, and we'll go in here and just get the process. Oh, no, it isn't been updated. Okay, hang on. So that one doesn't exist. Let's see here. Let me refresh. There's still 2 coming in, so I've still got 2 more to observe, but this one will eventually disappear. Yep, see, it's gone. It just hasn't updated iNaturalist yet. So anyway, so that is how you delete an image. So it is possible to do that. Anyway, that's a lot of information I've just shared with you. There is so much more that could be shared with you, but we just took 2.5 hours today. There are times when, especially when we're in person, we'll do 4-hour workshops that includes an outdoor component. But today we felt 2.5 hours was plenty of time to at least get you going with this. I want to remind you again, City Nature Challenge is from April 30th to May 3rd. We encourage you all to participate in that. And mostly I want to encourage you to just get out and use iNaturalist. What I find is that once you start using it, and if you really are into nature, it is a valuable tool. And as somebody that's been a naturalist for 40 years of my 40 plus years of my life, probably more like 50 as a kid. When I first heard of iNaturalist, I downloaded it, but I hardly ever used it. I thought, oh yeah, whatever. I was going to use my field guides and be old school. And then A, I got this job, and then B, I started realizing iNaturalist really is a very powerful tool for helping us learn about nature, helping us contribute to science and conservation here in Texas or anywhere else that you might travel. And it's just a wonderful thing. And so I would really strongly encourage you to get out, and every time you get outside, just take 2 or 3 pictures. But if you don't know what a wildflower is, or a tree, or even a weed, or you see some weird bug crawling on the ground, take a picture of it, find out what it is, learn about it. The better we are at learning about nature and what's around us, the better we will be off as a society. And in terms of conservation, the more conservationists we have, the better our chances of making an impact and a difference, and so that our future generations, those grandchildren and children and their children and grandchildren, will actually be able to enjoy the same things that we have. But if we don't care, if we just walk by everything like it's a blur, then we get what we get. So I know you all joined this program today because you obviously have some curiosity about the natural world or invested in the natural world. So use it yourself. Get your kids using it, get your grandparents, your friends using it. You can now kind of educate people a little bit more about the value of this thing. All right, so we've got a couple of questions here. And I know it's 12:33, so if you have to go, thank you all for coming today. Hopefully you found this worthwhile. Let me do one more thing. Let me get out of this and that. Let me put this back up from the current slide. There's that contact information if you need it. And I'll look at the questions that we have here. Let's see here. Let's say I took 2 pictures each of 2 different plants on my iPhone, and I want to upload to iNaturalist. Do I upload all 4 at once and then split them up in iNaturalist? Or is it better to load 2 at a time, each plant separately? Definitely each plant separately. Load those 2 pictures for that plant. Go ahead and do it, and then process that, and then upload the other 2 pictures. Okay. Just to reiterate, we do not need to assign observations tomorrow direct. No, nope. It will absolutely, Becky, that's going to go straight into that project. So you do not have to join it. You don't have to assign it. Just take the pictures and enjoy. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you all. Tomorrow at 9 o'clock, I believe. Is that correct, Becky?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So yeah, I'm popping myself in here real quick.
Yep,
So
go ahead. I
just
stopped sharing, so now people can see you.
Just wanted to be sure and make sure everybody that wants to participate tomorrow morning, yes, please do. The actual Nature Center doesn't open for public use until 10 o'clock, but I will be here early and we will meet right at the front of the visitor center, and then we'll go back into the arboretum and gardens and start making our observations. So yeah, I mean, you don't have to be here exactly at 9 o'clock. You know, we're doing it from 9 to 10:30. It's a real short kind of window, but this is really just to test your, not test, but it's a practicum for your skills, but also for us to gather some data. As we progress and we get more familiar and used to using iNaturalist, this is going to be an ongoing project here at the Nature Center. So we'll send out, you know, bulletins and stuff, but always know that you can come here. That project will be an ongoing project. So your observations will go into that, correct?
So this project is set up just for the hour and a half. What we can do, we can set up a permanent project, and what that'll do is take everything from before the day we set that up all the way forward.
Okay.
By not putting a time or date thing. So this will just give you an idea how you did on that hour and a half. And then I can talk to you next week when I get back from town and we can set up a permanent project. The biggest thing, how many observations do you have, by the way? Do you have any idea? Do you have more than 50 or less at this point?
Me personally?
Yeah. You, Becky.
Yeah, less than 50.
Okay, so here's the thing. One of the things when you set up a project, you have to have 50 observations because you have to select a place. And so I drew a map, a general map around what I thought were the boundaries of the Nature Center.
Right.
Went down to the creek and went down by the river. So I made it a little bigger. But to set up a permanent project, what we'll need to do is just coordinate working out and getting the exact boundary you want. And then we can set up, and I can do that. And then once you have more than 50 observations, I can turn you over as the administrator. And then that way you can go in and edit the project, check, pull data, do all that kind of stuff. So we can talk about that next week. And set up that permanent project. So we can do that at any time. So just to let you know. Somebody asked if Jeff and I take a picture of the same butterfly. That's going to happen a lot, and that's okay. Take the picture because that way you have it, and then Jeff has it. And yes, it'll show up as 2 observations in iNaturalist, but they can filter for that, sort that out later on. But the nice thing is then you get a record of it for your iNaturalist account. So I would say absolutely. That happens with us all the time when we're doing butterfly surveys and other things. So.
And we'll miss you tomorrow, Jeff. But you know, just come on by though and practice.
Exactly, and that really is what it's about. That's exactly right. Well, I'll miss being able to come up there. I would have loved to do that, but I also don't miss the fact that I'm going to be heading for Big Bend for a couple of days. So, first time I've taken a trip in a year, over a year now. So.
Oh, good for you.
Last time I left the area was we were in El Paso training on iNaturalist when the pandemic hit and they started shutting it down. So we literally, that weekend in March where they shut down the state, that was the weekend I was coming home from El Paso. So I'm glad to get back on the road and feel relatively safe. So anyway, let's see. It says, I intend to set up a project for my yard. Do I have to have 50 pictures first? Or no, you need to have 50 pictures first, Jeff. So get out there, take pictures of anything just to build up your library, and then you can go ahead and set up a project. And Jeff, if you need help with that, you can either use the help, the tutorial information on the webpage. You can send me an email and I'll help you with that, walk you through that process. It's not real hard, but it's 2-step. You got to set the project up and you got to make sure you have a place for your yard. So, okay.
Well, I can't thank you enough, Craig. I mean, this has been extremely
this is only a year in the making, right?
Well, yeah, for those of you folks that aren't aware, yeah, this was supposed to go off April last year.
Yeah, right,
And
right.
we
Yep.
kept getting canceled.
Yeah.
So yay.
Yeah.
But this is sort of a part one. This is a continual thing. And I am sure that, down the road, we're going to have Craig back with us, and we'll do, another iNaturalist for, fledglings or maybe first year birds. So,
All right. Hey, and I see that we've got somebody that's having trouble with not being able to take pictures. So yes, the answer is yes. Trudy. So Trudy, just stay on, and once we finish, you and I can work through that and see if we can figure out why that isn't working for you. So, but at that, unless you have anything, Becky, I will say thank you to everybody, and get out there and enjoy nature, whether it's with your phone or not. And help science and help conservation in the state of Texas. So thank you so much for the opportunity, Becky, and thank you all. And you all have a great weekend. Be safe, and we will hopefully see you sooner than later in person. So
yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks everybody for attending today. We